Hello everyone, and welcome to the 10th Cocoa programming tutorial. In this tutorial, I'm going to be covering how we can use NSImageViews in our Cocoa applications. So unlike some of the previous tutorials, this tutorial is going to be quite involved. There's going to be a multitude of other things that we have to learn in order to understand how NSImageViews work, or views in general. And then there's going to be quite a few announcements at the end of this tutorial as well. So just expect it to be long. So anyway, let's just dive right into what we want to be doing. So NSImageViews. NSImageViews are basically a way that we can embed an image into our application. So we can put an image into our NSImageView, and then we can basically post or push that image view into our application. So that's really what we're going to be learning about, but there's many other important things you have to know in order to understand how this works. So first off, what we want to be doing is we want to have our entire large application, so basically from here to here, this entire view, we want this to be one large NSView. And I didn't say NSImageView in case you were confused, I did say NSView. And what NSView sets up for us is basically a coordinate system. So you might not notice this, but actually most things that you create in Cocoa inherit from NSView. Anything that really has some kind of rectangular frame, NSImageView, even your buttons, many things inherit from NSView. And what NSView sets up is a coordinate system, basically. It can set up a rectangular frame that you can position items within. So what we're doing with by making this whole thing one large NSView is we can position different objects in our view. So if we want to add an NSImageView to the view, we can position where the NSView is going to be located within our view. So kind of a lot of views there, but I'm going to be saying that all throughout this tutorial. But again, basically we're setting up with NSView a coordinate system that we can later position different objects. So what we want to be doing here is, of course, we want to have a class that will inherit from NSView so that we can have a bunch of instance variables like our NSImageView, and then we can manipulate that in code, and that will change what we see on our screen. So what we first want to do is go ahead and create a new subclass of NSView, so basically a new Objective-C class. So go ahead up to File, New, and New File. And the reason I'm going up here instead of down here is because we can specify the subclass for the class we're creating. So in this case, we don't want to inherit from NSObject, we actually want to inherit from NSView. And by going to the File menu, we're allowed to do that. So we can go to Objective-C class, hit Next, and you can see right here we get that option to subclass any of these objects. And this just will set up some template code for us when we create the new class. So go ahead and hit Next, and now we're just going to call this our view. And you can be probably more descriptive than that, but that's what I'm going to be calling it. So go ahead, create that view, and now we have a nice new class over here called our view, and it just inherits from NSView. So pretty simple. So again, what we just created is basically an NSView, but now we are able to add some instance variables into that view object or our view class, and then we can manipulate them in the class. So now what we want to be able to do is take our view that we just created, and we want to make this our entire application basically that view. So to do this in Cocoa, what we want to put into our application is something known as a custom view. And all this really is it allows us to have any NSView. So any subclass of an NSView is basically a custom view. So what we can do here is we can, all I did was type in custom in the search bar right there, and I just dragged out a custom view. And what I'm doing right now is just expanding the custom view to fill the entire application. So with that out of the way, now what we want to do is, since this is just a generic custom view, we want to make it more specific to our view, which we just created. So again, what we can do is go up into our attributes inspector, specify the class that this view is going to be, which in our case is our view. So there we go. Now the custom class of the view that we just added is now our view. So anything that we specify in our view class is going to be changed to our view object. So with that out of the way, we've pretty much laid out all the groundwork that we want for this application. We have a view that will span the entire application, and now we have a coordinate system that we can change the objects that we have within it. So now we can get into the real code, or what we actually want to do. So go ahead over to our view NSView object over here, our class. And what we want to do, of course, is add an NSImageView, because our NSImageView is what we wanted to add. That's the whole point of this tutorial. So go ahead and add NSImageView, and we're just going to call it ImageView. You can call it whatever you want, but that's what I'm calling it. So we have our NSImageView, our ImageView object, and now we can change this ImageView throughout our code. So that's all we really want for the interface. There's no methods that we have to work with. We just wanted this one object that we can manipulate throughout our program. So with that said, now we can jump into the implementation of where we can actually set up our NSImageView. So there's a lot of boilerplate code in this, and we're actually going to pretty much ignore everything that's below, or what I just highlighted there. And we will get into that in a later tutorial, but for this tutorial, all we're really doing is creating a new NSImageView, and then we're putting that into our application. So there's really no need to have DrawRect, and I'm not going to get into what DrawRect really does, because that's really just for another tutorial altogether. But essentially what we're doing in this tutorial again is just initializing a new NSImageView, and then we just want to put it into our application. So with that said, let's actually start writing what we need here. So the important thing to know about NSImageView, or any view in general, is that it works off of a rectangular coordinate system. And anytime you are creating a frame, which is what it's known as, you use this object, which is NSRect, and you can see that right there. So essentially our view that we created here is alloc initted with initWithFrame, and initWithFrame will initialize it with this NSRect object. And again, NSRect is just a C struct, if you want to be specific, that just has an origin and a size. So just like a rectangle, it would have an origin where you want to position your rectangle, and then it also has the width and the height. So that's what we want to be able to do with our image view. We want to have it so that we can position wherever our view is going to be. So in order to do that, we have to have an NSRect. And NSRect is just a generic, like I said, C struct that has an origin and a size attribute to it. So let's get ahead. Let's just start with that. So what we want to do is just create a new NSRect. And NSRect, since it's a C struct, it's not actually a class, so we don't have to have the star. We just leave it without it. And again, if you don't know what C structs are, I have C tutorials on that. You don't really have to know what they are, but it's nice to understand how this works. So anyway, we're creating an NSRect here. We're just going to call it rect. And now, to create a new NSRectangle object, or a new C struct I should say, we just say NSMakeRect. Just like that. And I'm just going to hide this little quick bar over here. So now you can see we have our NSRect, and now we want to make a new NSRect. And that's by this function right here called NSMakeRect. So all this takes in is the first two are x and y coordinates for your origin, and then the last two are the width and the height. So how coordinate systems work in our Cocoa applications is the coordinate, or the origin, is always in the bottom left. So going back to our application, basically in our view, the 0, 0 point of this view, or our origin, would be at the very bottom left corner right here. And everything out to the right, increasing to the right, would be, increasing in your x-axis, and everything going up would be increasing in your y-axis. So you get the idea. Basically the 0, 0 point, or your origin, is in the bottom left. So what we're doing with our view right here, or our rectangle, is we want to position where our origin is for our rectangle. And we want to position it so that it's not in the bottom left corner, but we want it 10 pixels out and 10 pixels up. So to do that, all we have to say is 10 for our x value. That'll shift it to the right 10. And then for our y, we want it to be 10 pixels as well. So now, we don't really know what we want our width and height to be. We could, make them, we're just going to make them in this tutorial some abstract value. So we'll just make our width 400 and we'll make our height 300. And that's just a general value that I'm throwing in. So again, we just created a new NSRect. NSRect is just a C struct that has an origin, basically, which is by this x and this y, and then it has a width and a height, which we specified right here. So now we just created this new rect C struct, and now this rectangle will hold all the information necessary to create a frame. So now that we have the rect in place, what we want to do is actually initialize our NSImageView. So we already had the actual object right here, but we still have to initialize it. We have to alloc init it. So we called it ImageView, and we just say ImageView. We are going to NSImageView alloc, and then what we want to do is initialize it with a frame. So initWithFrame is the method that we do. And as you can see, initWithFrame takes an NSRect, and how convenient, we just created this NSRect right here, which is going to be our frame for this image view. So go ahead and type in rect, because we just created that rect object right there. So now we have this image view with this designated frame that we created with this rectangle object right here. So we have an image view with a frame. That's really all we have so far. We haven't really gotten into anything specific. So we're just going to set up two things right now, and the first thing is just the scaling with the image view, and I'll get into that in a second. And the second thing is actually putting the picture in, so we'll also get into that. So what is scaling in an NSImageView? So basically, when you put an image into something, you want to have a certain behavior for it. For example, if you have an image and if you want it to fill the whole screen, then you'd want to scale the image to fill the whole screen. If you just put the image in with its default size, it might be too small. It might not actually fill the whole screen. So what we can do with image views is basically set this attribute to define what the scaling will be for an image that's put into this view. So to set this, we can just say image view set image scaling, and then this just takes NSImage scaling, and these are just a bunch of constants. So you can just start typing in something. So if you type in NSScale, and then you'll see there's a few options right here. NSScale none would just not scale anything. NSScale proportionally would keep the defined, I don't know what you call it, the defined ratio of edges, so it wouldn't actually distort the image in height and width. It would keep the same ratio of height and width. I don't know how to explain that much better, and then NSScale to fit would just completely fill the whole image view with that image. And that's actually the option we're going to use for this tutorial, just to show that we can expand this image to fit the entire image view. So now that we have the scaling all set up, now we can add our beautiful little image that we want for this image view. So first of all, we have to actually get an image. So I'm just going to open Finder here, and I already have this image. And you can just find any image offline or on your computer, it doesn't really matter. But just find an image, then drag it into your supporting files or into Xcode. And then you can just drag it, drop it, and then you'll see Xcode gives you this option. Make sure you copy the items into the designated folder. That's important. Anytime you're working with these tutorials, make sure you're copying the items that we throw into Xcode, just as a reminder. There is instances where you wouldn't want to copy things, but for all these tutorials I work with, or I show you, you're going to want to copy the items. So anyway, with copy selected, we can go ahead and finish that. So now what we basically just did is added this image into Xcode. That's all we did. So now we can reference this image and add it to our image view. So going back to our code now, what we want to do is add this image view, or we want to add this NS image into our image view. So to do that, it's pretty simple. All we have to do is say image view. All we have to do now is say set image in the top option right here. And set image, as you can see, will take an NS image. So anytime you want to use an image, just any image file in your application, you have to basically create an NS image. And it's very simple. All you have to do is say NS image, and we just say image named, and then it just takes a string of the name of the image. So the name of our image right over here was just called image.jpg. So all we want to type in is image.jpg. So that's basically the construct of setting an image, and then this right here is just an NSImage object. So we could have done this in 2 steps if we wanted. We could just say NSImage image gets, and then alloc init this NSImage named. And as you can see, it works the same way. I'm just combining 2 steps into one here. So if you don't really like the square brackets within square brackets sort of thing, you can create your own NSImage object like that, and then you can just put in the name like I'm doing here. I'm just scrapping this step and then making the NSImage right in the parameter like that. So just to recap what we just did, we have an image view. We're saying, okay, image view, we're going to set your image to be equal, or we're just going to be putting in this NSImage. And the NSImage we're adding is an NSImage with the image named image.jpg, which was in the side, it was the image that we just added. And again, just make sure whatever you name your image, just make sure you put in the right name with the proper extension. So we have all that, and we have our image view, we have the scaling properly, and everything's properly created. So what we have here is the image view perfectly made, but what happens is it's not actually in anything yet. We create this image view, but it's not actually put into our application. To demonstrate this, I'll just go ahead and run this, and you'll see we have no errors. But what you'll notice is that when this finally runs, we don't have an image anywhere in this application. And the reason for this is that we just created an image view and we didn't put it anywhere. We didn't say, take this image view and put it into our application, which we wanted to do. So what we want to be doing is, since this entire thing is in an NSView, like we created right here, the entire NS image that we put in here is going to be within this NSView. So what we want to be doing is saying we want to add this image view into our view. And how we can do this is say self, and again, self, all that means is that it just is the class that we're in. So essentially the NSImageView, we're adding whatever we want to it. So since we're in an NSView class, we can just say self add subview. And again, all this does is adds a view into the current view that we're in. It just adds a subview. And the subview is just our image view. So all we want to say is image view. So all this really does is takes the self, which is right now, this class is an NSView. So the NSView is going to add a subview of ImageView. And ImageView, of course, contains the image and all the proper coordinates that we assign to it. So we can go ahead, build and run this, and we'll see now that we finally get this beautiful image inside our little application window. We didn't specify anything about, if the window changes or anything, but it's fairly complex as it is. So as you can see, we are specifying the frame worked properly, and I'll just show you if I expand this a little more, we can see that the image view will change as the NS rectangle changes. So as you can see right here, we have this really big image now because we expanded the coordinates. So that's really how NSImageViews work in Cocoa applications. You essentially have to just create the frame that it will be created in. You initialize the image view with that frame. Then you don't have to set the scaling, but it's preferred in this case anyway. And then of course you have to add the image that you want right here, setting the image. You want to add the image to your image view. And then of course at the very end you have to put this image view into the NS view that you're talking about. So of course for our application we have our view, but what we will have to do is push this image view into that view that we want to put it into. So that's a lot of views, I know, but hopefully you get the idea. We just have one grand view that we have to push this smaller image view into. So that's the grand idea of how NSImageViews work, and a few other things in Cocoa as well. And there's just how coordinate systems work, NSViews, a lot of important stuff in this tutorial. So if you by any means didn't get something, just go back and look over the code that we did and just my explanations. And of course, you're always welcome to leave questions in the comments as well. Please subscribe to the channel, and I also just have a few kind of announcements / question things for you guys. So basically, somebody on the channel just recommended that I create a kind of a grand list of all the tutorials that I have. So I'm actually working on basically this PDF guide that I'll keep updating as new tutorials are added, but it will basically just be a running list of all of the tutorials that I had to date. So whoever recommended that I do that, I'm just adding a whole list of all the tutorials that I have, because again, the titles of the tutorials are sometimes too long, so they cut off. So anyway, that's the purpose of doing that. I also wanted to run by possibly a little more community involvement just for the channel itself. I don't know what you guys think of having live stream things at all. I'd think maybe through Ustream, if anyone was interested. We could, I don't know what you want to do through a live stream event, but you could ask questions or whatever, and we could, cover any cool stuff you want to through a live stream. So that's just throwing out ideas, and if you want to, pursue any of these ideas that I'm throwing out, just comment in the comments section if you like it or not. And of course, I always appreciate your support by clicking some ads. It just helps pay a little bit, and it doesn't give me that much, but it's helpful anyway. So anyway, thanks for watching the tutorial, and more tutorials are on the way. See you then.